Hey guys, I'm Heintje, and if you've seen the Lac Blanc video I made last year, you know that I had a few very sketchy moments that easily could have gone very wrong. The next day I spent all day learning how to jump again, slowly rebuilding my confidence. This year, after a steady day at the Greenhill bike park, I was full of confidence that I could ride a lot of features I haven't ridden before. However, I didn't want to set too many expectations, that will only lead to disappointment. I went for a fun weekend and just see what I would and wouldn't ride. In this video I'll show the process of those days. I hope you enjoy. Let's start the video with how I started my challenge, my first run of FET, the jump line in Lac Blanc. Of course this was after a couple of warm-up runs on the easier lines.
Oh yeah, FET.
During this run my objective was to scout the line. Always be sure there are no major changes that might surprise you when you visit the bike park after a while. During my previous visits I've already done most of the jumps on this line, so I went for all the features I felt comfortable with. This next jump is one that almost took me out last time, but now I know what I did wrong back then. En with the power of a toe-in, I went for it on my first run.
Niet netjes, maar wel gehaald.
Not perfect, but I made it. This time not in a scary, sketchy way. During the rest of the line, I did all the jumps I've done before. This line is so much fun for the intermediate jumper. Yeah, most of the jumps are gap jumps, however, they're not very big. You also have a very nice lip that allows you to get a good amount of pop, making it so you can clear jumps even without too much speed. Although this is something that nearly screwed me last year. I didn't quite remember the speed needed, so I went in what turned out to be too fast. And then I also gave it a bit of pop. Making me overshoot the jump so far, I almost went over the bars. And I can't state enough how close it was. Later I got to clean it up, but somehow this one jump is still scary for me. Let's see how it goes this time. This time it went smooth, probably again thanks to following my friend. It's so easy to approach this jump with way too much speed. And since it's a gap jump, you also don't want to go too slow. With a couple of jumps on the 4-cross line, I've come to the end of my scouting run. Now it's time to session and work out the features that still are on my to-do list. But before I go to that section, let me first address the one gap jump on the flow line. This is the one underneath the lift, another one I had some sketchy moments on last time. When looking at it from the lift, it looks decent but not that hard. That's until you run up to it. The corner before the jumps makes it hard to carry speed and focus on the jump. During the 2 days here I did this trail a couple of times and I cleared the gap every time. It wasn't a royal clear, but at least it wasn't sketchy either. Good to see that the jump that used to be barely within my limits is now well within my capabilities. Time to move back to the FET line. Time to work on some new jumps, or at least new in the way that I haven't hit them before. The first one we worked on was this double coming after my nemesis jump. Just like the jump I just showed, the tricky part is the corner before, now even harder in slightly muddy conditions. Even though the jump before is smaller than you think, you still gain quite a bit of speed. Speed that's harder to carry through the corner, so let's check out the jump first. After that, and some tips from my friend Jelle, it was time to go for it.
Ja, gewoon chillen.
I'm sure you know what I'm gonna say now. That's right. Easy.
Ja.
Turns out you don't need that much speed because the lip provides enough pop to clear the jump.
Ja, gewoon chillen.
If anything, I even landed on the deep side of the landing. After the first jump you can slow down a bit to focus on entering the corner. Then at this point you can look through the corner and spot this root. Then let go of the brakes, pump the berm, avoid the root and focus on the lip and pop the jump.
Ja.
Now it's my turn to give a toe into one of my friends. He came to the same conclusion. Easy.
Hij is echt easy. Ja, echt hè.
So one more walk up for the video. Now let's continue the trail to the wall ride jump. Now I have this double in the back, this might as well be the coolest section of the trail. Two simple but fun gap jumps, followed up by a jump into a wall ride. The next challenge was a huge table. By now I've rolled over it so many times, there just isn't anything I can do to prepare myself better for it. All I can do is flip the switch and commit.
Oké, ja.
Sta je?
Is je vanaf hier nog te doen?
100%.
Oké. Flink aanzetten of?
Nee. Niet. Gewoon een rustige breekzet.
Lekker.
The landing is so long that you cannot overshoot this one. Nonetheless, I didn't want to send it too big and just made it to the landing. After I've done it a couple of times, I have to say, it's a really cool jump that's completely out of its place in Lac Blanc. It's so much bigger than everything else in the park. The first issue this gives is that there's no real way to build up to it, at least not here. In order to get familiar with this size jumps, you have to go to other bike parks. The second issue is a bit of a luxury problem. Once you've cleared this jump, everything else on this line feels all of a sudden small. Anyway, that's 2 new jumps in the bag, not a bad score for the day. So time to have some fun on the roots line. A bit of tech for the needed variation. This line is still one of my favorites. Unfortunately, it's still rare to see trails combine technical sections with some man-made jumps and drops. Often when so-called natural trails do have man-made jumps, they are of the road gap size, not the size most riders can have fun on. The tech on this line is fairly easy. The only scary part is the speed you can take it with. The long straight sections give you the opportunity to gain so much speed. Especially when I tried to keep up with my friend. This led to some sketchy moments. Thankfully I could keep the rubber side down.
Fuck.
Something that's not to say for the next feature. A friend asked me if I could show him the wooden step up. Sure, why not? Again a small, bit weird but fun jump. Only I landed too far to the right, heading straight for a tree stump. Now in dry conditions I would have lifted my front wheel, unweighted my back wheel and rolled over it. However, now it was wet, I opted to avoid the whole thing, while going around it over the wet roots was probably an even worse option, resulting in this silly crash.
Ja, weet je zeker dat het gaat?
Ja, nee.
Silly, but quite painful. I fell on the keys in my pocket, something I felt for a couple of days when I bent my leg too much. This was quite annoying every time I exit the lift, but luckily I didn't feel it while riding. So it was time to check out the Nuts Trail, another tech trail that I still want to session one day. One day, not this day. This day was all about the road gap, the one you can see from the lift and the one in the thumbnail of this video. Let me be straight up about it. I know I have the skills to do a drop like this. I mean, I know how to point the bike to the landing. I also have the experience needed to absorb the impact upon landing. I even have a pretty good guess about the speed needed. And that's where the problem lies. With the consequences this big, having a pretty good guess still feels like a huge risk. Going too slow and it's 3 meters too flat, to then drop off the landing as well. Going too fast and it's 6 meters too flat. Arguably even worse. So I did everything I could to prepare myself as best as possible. I walked up to the end of the drop. With these kind of features, you always want to know at which point you can spot a landing and know how much you still can adjust at that point. Walking further is pointless, even discouraged. When you ride a drop like this, as soon as you see the landing, that's where your focus is. So you won't get to see what's straight down. Looking at it will make it only scarier for you. After that I did a run up. And then a run up with slightly more speed. One that was really sketchy to stop in time. Now I watched my friend ride the drop, and of course, he makes it look easy. When I asked him for a tow-in, he declined. Now it was up to me. Can I guess the right speed? While being a bit agitated by the declined toe-in, I know it's his decision. If he doesn't feel like riding the drop again, that's his good ride. At this point I was 95% sure I could do the drop and ride away from it. However, that 5% chance of ending up in the hospital was enough for me to decide to not go for it. As I always say, mountain biking is all about pushing your limits, but most of all, it's about having fun and staying safe. With that anti-climax, I've come to the end of the day. The next day we went to Bike Park La Bresse. What happened there will be something for another video, but let's say it gave me a lot of confidence. So now let's move on to day 3 of this trip, back in Lac Blanc. Let me skip the whole warm-up process and go straight back to the road gap. No, it's not that I just did it this time. Not at all. Again, I did all I could to prepare myself as much as possible. I'm sure I walked up to the edge of the drop at least 5 times. I also watched my friend and others ride the drop. Had some talk with him over how much speed I needed. I even took a piss to delay my decision whether to go for it or not.
Dan rij je met hoge snelheid en dan druk je hem gewoon omlaag.
Dan ga je nog.
En dan zie je dat die boog echt heel netjes loopt.
I think this whole process took me 10 minutes. At this point I knew the speed needed as good as possible. According to Jelle, I should put in 2 cranks and have the right speed. At this point I knew he knows what he's talking about, so I trusted his judgment. I still knew I have the skills needed, so at this point I was as sure as I possibly could be. However, it was still so scary. I've hit big drops in the past, not with this much of a sniper landing, followed up by a corner this fast. Now I reached the point that I could no longer delay my decision. I had to go for it, or not do it and continue the trail. This time my friend even offered a toe-in, but he also said I didn't need one. So I grabbed my bike, went to the start position, took a deep breath and...
Yeah!
I did it. I fucking did it. My biggest drop ever. And Jelle was right. I didn't need the toe-in. Looking at the footage, I landed pretty deep, but it felt okay. The corner after was not an issue, not at all. If you land smooth, you have plenty of time to slow down. Often, when you finally nail a feature, you want to do it again and again to perfect it. Not this one. Now I've done it, I didn't have the feeling that I wanted to do it again. Finally understanding Jelle for not giving me a toe in 2 days prior. After a couple of minutes of letting sink in what I just did, it was time to continue. Ah, what the hell. Now we're here, let's hit the road gap one more time. Again a little deep, but who cares. Now I could end the video with this victory, but there were still some features in the park that I might be able to do. First one is this wall ride thingy. Again one I have to thank Jelle for. His tip of taking the corner before all the way to the inside made this line so much better. You lose a bit of speed for the corner, but you can give a crank before hitting the wall ride. Then just pump the wall ride and you'll be fine. Well, jumping off the end is also tricky, something that got better over time. Next feature is a gap jump followed up by a boner log. This gap is bigger than most jumps on this line, and of course it's just behind the corner. In the run I decided to go for it. I was following Jelle again for a bit of a toe-in. However, of course my GoPro battery had to die at this moment, so after replacing it my toe-in was long gone. That's the gap jump in the back. Next run, let's try the boner log. Boner logs are kind of step down where the lip has no radius, are still hard for me to judge the speed. First of all, I can't really tell how much speed I lose on the uphill of the jump, and second, since it has no lip, you can't pop for extra speed when needed. Even though this is a pretty big feature, compared to the road gap I just did, it's small, so I just winged it. Went more or less with trail speed, and with that completed one of the last features on the trail. Only one left is the wall ride at the top, after the big drop. After a demonstration of how not to do it, I didn't feel the urge to give this one a try. Also, out of these 2 drops, the red one, the smaller one, is more fun. It's smoother, so most runs I took that one, not lining up for the wall ride anyway. With that I've come to the end of the video, but first let me give a huge shout out to Jelle. He really helped me with a lot of features. Please give him a follow on Instagram, I'm sure he loved that. Also, please hit that like button if you liked the video and hit the subscribe button if you want to see what happened at La Bresse to boost my confidence. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you back for my next video, hopefully soon. In the meantime, have fun riding. Houdoe. Oh yeah, I know there are more, bigger jumps in Lac Blanc, R-line. And I would love to check these out as well. Unfortunately, closed. So next time.